The broken soldier. For 10 long years, the soldier sat in silence. His body was alive, but his legs were not. The war had taken many things from him: his friends, his strength, his future. Now only a chair carried him from one place to another, and that chair had become his prison. Every morning, he woke up in the same small room. The walls were gray, the window always half open, the air cold and sharp. He had medals once, shining proof of his bravery, but they lay forgotten in a box under his bed. The galaxy remembered him once as a hero. Now it remembered him as a man who could no longer walk. The soldier's name was Elias. He was not old, but the years of waiting had carved lines into his face. His eyes held the weight of someone who had seen too much. The battles he fought replayed in his dreams, and the screams of war still echoed in his ears. Sometimes he clenched his fists so hard his nails cut into his palms, not because of pain, but because of anger. Anger at the universe, at fate, at himself. 10 years of waiting, 10 years of wondering why he survived when others did not. Outside his small home, life went on. Humans rebuilt, aliens advanced, new treaties were signed. But Elias remained still, as if time itself had forgotten him. No cure had worked, no machine had helped. Doctors had told him his nerves were beyond repair. Science had declared his legs dead. And so the soldier waited for death, or for something. Anything that would prove life was still worth holding on to. One evening, as the sun sank behind the colony towers, Elias sat near the window. The light bathed his face in gold, and for a moment he looked less broken. But his heart was heavy. He thought of the war, the choices, the explosion that had torn through his ship. He thought of the last thing he remembered before waking in a hospital bed. The sound of fire and metal, and then darkness. In that darkness, he had felt certain his story was over. But somehow he was still here, alive but incomplete. People visited sometimes, but not often. Most did not know what to say. They looked at him with pity, and he hated that look more than his broken body. So he pushed them away, little by little, until loneliness became his only companion. And yet, deep inside, a flame still burned. It was small, weak, almost invisible, but it was there, the soldier's will. The part of him that refused to accept that this was the end. Elias often placed his hand on his useless legs. He whispered, "Move, just move." But there was nothing, no answer, no spark. Only silence. On the 10th year of his broken life, rumors began to spread. Stories whispered in markets, carried through alleys. Stories of strange things that happened when humans touched others. Some said a wounded alien soldier's bones had healed after a human hand rested on them. Others claimed a sick child recovered when a human held her through the night. Most called these tales nonsense, superstition, fairy stories for desperate ears. But one alien did not laugh. She was a scientist, proud, skeptical, cold. She heard the rumors and felt only disbelief. And yet, curiosity burned within her. If there was even a small chance that these stories were true, then it would mean science had missed something powerful, something that could change the galaxy. Her search led her to Elias, the broken soldier who had not walked for 10 years. She stood at his door, her shadow long in the evening sun. Elias lifted his head, surprised. He had not expected a visitor, and certainly not an alien stranger with sharp eyes and calm hands. "You are Elias," she said, her voice smooth but heavy with meaning. "You survived the war, but you no longer walk." He gave a bitter smile. "That's one way to say it," he replied. "Who are you?" "I am Dr. Kalen," she answered. "I study the limits of life, and I have heard stories." Elias frowned. "Stories? That the touch of a human," she whispered, "can do what science cannot." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Elias laughed, but it was not a laugh of joy. It was sharp, broken, almost painful. "You came all the way here for a fairy tale?" Kalen did not smile. "I came here for truth," she said firmly. "And if it is a lie, I will know. But if it is real, then you may not be as broken as you believe." Elias stared at her, unsure whether to be angry or hopeful. His hands trembled as he looked down at his useless legs. The thought of moving again was a dream he had buried long ago. And yet, for the first time in 10 years, someone had lit a spark in the ashes of his soul. Could it be true? Could a human's touch really change the impossible? The broken soldier did not know, but as he met the alien doctor's eyes, he felt something he had not felt in years: suspense, and a dangerous, fragile thing called hope. The alien doubt. Dr. Kalin was not like other aliens, where most of her kind trusted in machines, formulas, and laws of physics. Kalin trusted only in herself. She believed that science had no room for rumors. And yet, here she was, standing inside a broken soldier's room because of whispers carried through streets. She looked at Elias with sharp eyes, her long fingers tapping against the small device in her hand. The soldier looked tired, older than his years, yet something about him unsettled her. He was not weak, not really. Even in that chair, his presence filled the room, as though his spirit refused to shrink. Kalin did not like that feeling. She preferred control, logic, certainty. But standing near Elias, she felt a strange pulse in the air, like invisible threads tightening around them both. "You believe in this nonsense?" Elias asked, breaking the silence. His voice was dry, almost mocking. "A human's touch, a miracle cure? You must be desperate, doctor." Kalin tilted her head, her face unreadable. "I do not believe," she replied. "I test, I measure, I prove. That is what I do, and that is why I am here." Elias leaned back in his chair, his laugh bitter, then prepared to be disappointed. "Doctor, 10 years of doctors, machines, and experiments, and nothing, absolutely nothing." Her eyes narrowed. "Perhaps those doctors were not me," she said. It was not arrogance, not exactly, but a deep conviction that if truth existed, she would uncover it. She reached out a hand, slow, deliberate. Her fingers hovered just above Elias's hand. For a moment, Elias felt his chest tighten, as if the air itself held its breath. "Touch me then," he said softly, almost daring her. "See if your fairy tale has any truth." Kalin hesitated. It was strange for her. She was never afraid of experiments, never hesitant with data, but this felt different, as though the moment she touched him, something beyond science would awaken. And that thought unsettled her more than she cared to admit. Finally, her skin brushed against his. It was a simple touch, alien against human, cold against warm, scientist against soldier. But in that single moment, something rippled through her nerves. A current, faint, invisible, yet undeniable. Kalin pulled her hand back sharply, her breath caught in her throat. Her device flickered in warning, readings spiking without explanation. It made no sense at all. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. Elias blinked at her in surprise. "Me? I did nothing. I sat here, same as always." But Kalen's chest rose and fell quickly, her alien heart beating faster than it had in years. Her mind raced through every possibility. Static discharge? No. Hidden technology? Impossible. Then what was it? She replayed the moment in her mind, and again the memory of that surge crawled across her skin. Her logical brain screamed at her to dismiss it. One touch was not proof, it was error, coincidence, noise. And yet, her instincts whispered something else, something dangerous, something that said, "This is real." She hated that whisper, because it meant she was no longer in control, because it meant science might not be enough to explain what had just happened. Elias watched her carefully. For the first time in years, he felt amusement. The great alien doctor, shaken by nothing more than the hand of a crippled man. "Not so sure now, are you?" he asked, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Kalin ignored the comment, but her silence spoke louder than any words. Her mind was already burning with questions. If one touch could cause such a reaction, what would more contact do? Could it truly trigger change in his broken body? Could it restore what machines had declared dead? She paced across the room, her long coat swaying behind her. No, she muttered to herself. It cannot be, but I must know. Elias raised an eyebrow. Must know what? If your touch, she said slowly, is the key that science has been blind to. For the first time in 10 years, Elias did not laugh. Her words were strange, but they stirred something inside him. Something dangerous, something hopeful. And though Kaylin's face remained calm, her thoughts betrayed her. Because she, the cold scientist who trusted only in logic, was starting to doubt her own certainty. The alien doctor came searching for truth. But what she found was fear. Fear that the truth might be more human than she ever imagined. The experiment begins. The night outside was quiet, but inside Elias's small home, something unusual was happening. Dr. Kaylin had turned his room into a secret lab. Her devices hummed, glowing with pale blue light. Strange instruments floated above the floor, scanning, measuring, recording every movement. Elias watched her with tired eyes. He had seen many doctors before, and all had promised hope. Yet none had delivered. But Kaylin was different, not because she promised miracles, but because she promised nothing. She wanted only to test, to see, to uncover truth. Still, Elias felt uneasy. Machines had failed him before. What could this alien woman possibly find that others had not? But when he looked at her, the intensity in her eyes made him hesitate. This was not a woman searching for fame or glory. This was someone chasing answers, no matter the cost. Kaylin placed a scanner near his legs. The screen showed dead nerves, cold tissue, and broken pathways. Her voice was calm. Your body shows no chance of natural recovery, she said. Elias gave a hollow laugh. Tell me something I don't know. She ignored him and stepped closer. Again, she ordered, extending her hand. Elias frowned. You want me to touch you? Yes, she said firmly. And this time, I will record everything. He hesitated, then slowly reached out. Their hands met, warm human skin against cool alien flesh. At once, the machine sparked. Screens flared with impossible readings. Lines of data raced across the monitors faster than Kaylin's eyes could follow. Energy patterns, wild, unstable, but alive, poured from the contact. Elias gasped, not from pain, but from sensation. For the first time in 10 years, he felt something faint traveling down his leg. A tingling, like tiny sparks racing under his skin. He froze, afraid to move, afraid it would vanish. Kaylin's eyes widened, her calm mask cracking. This is not possible, she whispered. Her instruments were built to measure life force, nerve currents, bioelectric signals. But the readings she saw now were unlike anything she had studied. The human's touch was not only sending energy through his own body, it was overloading her machines. Elias clenched her hand tighter. I can feel, he said, his voice breaking. Kaylin snapped her head toward him. Where? My leg, he whispered. I felt movement. The doctor's pulse quickened. She turned her scanners directly on his legs. The dead tissue showed faint flickers of activity, weak, fragile, but alive. Kaylin's hands trembled as she adjusted her devices. Her entire life of research was being rewritten in a single moment. No machine has ever done this, she muttered. No drug, no surgery, no alien technology. She looked at Elias as if seeing him for the first time. It is you, your body, your touch. Elias stared down at his legs, disbelief battling with hope. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but imagination was nothing compared to reality. It was faint, yes, but it was there. After 10 years of silence, his body had finally answered. Kaylin pulled her hand back suddenly. The machines died down. The sparks vanished. The flicker of life faded. Elias let out a cry, half anger, half desperation. Why did you stop? She turned away, pacing the room. Her heart raced, her thoughts clashed. This was too much, too dangerous. If she was right, then humans carried a power beyond logic. And if others found out, it could change the galaxy or destroy it. Elias gritted his teeth. You saw it, he said fiercely. You know it's real. I felt it. Kalen's voice was sharp. Yes, I saw, but I do not yet understand. Without understanding, it is only chaos, and chaos is dangerous. Silence hung heavy in the room. Elias's hands shook as he stared at his useless legs. A spark had been lit, and he could not let it go. For the first time in 10 years, he had felt hope, and he would not let it die again. Kalen adjusted her instruments once more. Her eyes burned with conflict, but also with hunger for truth. "We will continue," she said finally. "But you must understand, Elias, once we start, there will be no turning back." He met her gaze, his voice steady. "I've already spent 10 years waiting. Doctor, if this is my only chance, then I will risk everything." And so the experiment began. A broken soldier and a doubtful alien, bound together by a mystery that defied logic and threatened to shake the stars themselves. Signs of the impossible. The nights grew longer, and so did the secret sessions. Every evening, when the colony outside drifted to silence, Elias and Kalen worked in the dim glow of alien machines. He would take her hand, and each time, something stirred within his broken body. At first, it was only tingling, faint as a whisper, but soon it grew stronger, like sparks turning into a slow-burning fire. Kalen recorded every detail, her screens filled with impossible readings. She measured pulses of energy that science could not name. She saw nerve pathways flicker alive, even though they had been declared dead for a decade. Every test brought more questions, and yet one undeniable truth rose above them all. The human touch was changing him. Elias felt it too. Each night his body spoke louder. A toe twitching, a muscle tightening, a nerve waking from its long sleep. For 10 years he had prayed for even the smallest sign, and now it was happening. It felt like a dream, but when he looked down and saw his foot move, he knew it was real. One evening, Kalen nearly dropped her scanner. The soldier had lifted his leg. Only a fraction, only for a moment, but enough to steal her breath. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "This should not be possible." Elias's laugh broke the silence. It was not bitter this time, but filled with raw wonder. "You saw it, didn't you?" he said, his voice trembling. I finally moved." Kalen nodded slowly, her mind torn between terror and awe. If she reported this to her people, the galaxy would never be the same. Some would celebrate, but others would see danger. Because if humans truly carried this hidden power, then they were not weak. They were something else, something unpredictable. The soldier noticed her silence. "You're afraid," he said quietly. Her eyes snapped to him, but she did not deny it. "Yes," she admitted, "I am afraid because science cannot explain what I see. Afraid because power like this never stays hidden for long." Elias tightened his grip on the chair's armrest. "Then let them see," he said, his voice rising. "I've lived in chains long enough. If my touch is a miracle, then I'll show it to the stars." Kalen shook her head, her voice sharp. "No, you do not understand. Miracles do not stay pure. They're studied, controlled, twisted. If the wrong hands learn of this, you will not be a soldier, Elias. You will be an experiment." The words cut deep, but they did not shake him. He leaned forward, eyes burning with something she had not seen before. Hope, fierce and alive. "Then we keep going," he said firmly. "I don't care what happens after. I just want to walk again." Kalen turned back to her machines, her thoughts heavy. She told herself she was a scientist, that this was only research. But she could no longer hide from the truth. She wanted him to succeed, not for data, not for science, but because she wanted to see the miracle with her own eyes. Days passed, and the changes grew clearer. Elias could now lift both legs slightly. He could flex his feet, move his toes with effort. Each step forward was small, but to him, it was victory beyond measure. To Kalen, it was proof that the impossible was becoming real. But the galaxy does not keep secrets for long. Unseen eyes had begun to watch, whispers of strange experiments leaking into the colony streets. Other scientists, curious officials, silent enemies, rumors spread like fire. and with them came danger. Kalen noticed at first the shadows outside Elias's home. Figures that lingered too long, strangers asking too many questions. Her instincts told her they did not come seeking truth. They came to stop it. One night, as Elias managed to hold his legs steady for more than a few seconds, Kalen forced herself to smile. But inside, her heart twisted. Every step forward brought them closer to exposure. And exposure meant the miracle would not belong to Elias, not to humans, not even to her. It would belong to those who hungered for control. She whispered to herself, too quiet for Elias to hear. The impossible has shown itself, and now the galaxy will come to take it. The threat within, the miracle could not stay hidden forever. No matter how quietly Kalen worked, no matter how carefully Elias kept his silence, the truth had a way of leaking through walls. And soon, whispers spread beyond the colony, reaching ears that did not want miracles. They wanted control. Alien officials held secret meetings in high towers. They feared what the rumors suggested. If a human's touch could undo wounds no medicine could heal, then humans were no longer the weak species many believed them to be. They could become symbols, leaders, even threats. And so, the order was given. Shut the experiment down before the spark became a fire. Kalen felt the change before she saw it. She noticed new faces in the colony streets. Guards who pretended to patrol, but whose eyes lingered too long on Elias's home. She saw drones hovering in places they did not belong. Even her laboratory access codes began to fail, as though someone was already cutting her off. Inside, Elias pushed harder every night. He could now lift his legs with effort, his muscles trembling but alive. He gritted his teeth through the pain, sweat running down his face. Each movement was fragile, but to him, it was triumph. For the first time in a decade, his body obeyed him. "You're getting stronger," Kalen said one night, her voice softer than usual. Elias gave her a crooked smile. "Or maybe your fairy tale is finally true." But her eyes betrayed her worry. The stronger he grew, the more dangerous their secret became. And danger was already at their door. That night, Kalen returned to her quarters to find her files accessed, her research logs copied, her machines tampered with. Someone new, someone inside her own ranks was tracking her every move. Her alien heart raced as she realized the truth. They would come for Elias soon, and when they did, they would not ask questions. The next evening, she told him. "They know," she whispered, her voice shaking for the first time. "Officials, soldiers, maybe even the council, they will not let this continue. Elias, they will take you." Elias froze, his hands curling into fists. "They want to stop me? After everything? After all this time? They do not want you healed," she said bitterly. "They want you contained, they want your touch studied, caged, controlled. And if they cannot control it, they will destroy it." For a long moment, the soldier said nothing. His eyes burned with rage, the same fire that had carried him through war. "I will not be their prisoner," he said firmly. "I spent 10 years trapped in this chair. I will not spend another second trapped in their chains." Kalen met his gaze, torn between fear and defiance. Her whole life had been built on serving truth, serving science. But for the first time, she wanted to protect more than data. She wanted to protect him, the man who was proving the impossible. Outside, shadows grew thicker, footsteps heavier. The threat was no longer distant. It was here, waiting for the right moment to strike. Elias tightened his grip on the chair's armrest, his voice low but steady. "Then we fight." Kalen's stomach twisted. She was no soldier, no fighter, but the conviction in his eyes left no room for doubt. This was no longer just about healing. It was survival. The broken soldier was becoming whole again, and the galaxy was preparing to break him once more. The final push. The night of reckoning arrived without warning. Elias woke to the sound of heavy boots outside his door. The metallic thud of soldiers marching in unison made the walls tremble. Kalen's scanners flickered with warning signals, her sharp eyes narrowing. "They're here," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. The door burst open, cold light flooding into the room. Armed guards stormed inside, their armor gleaming, their weapons aimed. Behind them stood an official, tall and stern, his face carved with authority. "The experiment is over," he declared, his tone final. "The human comes with us." Elias gritted his teeth, his body trembling, not from fear, but from rage. For 10 long years he had been powerless, bound to a chair. But tonight, power surged through him, fragile yet fierce. He was not ready to give it up. Not now, not ever. Kaylin stepped between him and the soldiers. "No," she said firmly. Her hand shook, but her voice was steel. "You do not understand what you are doing. He is proof of something greater. He is the future." The official sneered. "He is a danger." He raised his hand, and the guards moved forward. But Elias gripped the armrest of his chair with white knuckles, his voice rising in defiance. "No more chains, not for me." Kaylin turned, her eyes wide. "Elias, what are you?" Before she could finish, Elias reached out and seized her hand. The connection ignited like fire. Energy roared through his body, brighter, stronger, more violent than ever before. Machines sparked, screens shattered, the air itself crackled with invisible force. Pain seared through him, but he welcomed it. His broken legs trembled, then stiffened, then moved. With a cry that shook the room, Elias forced himself upright. 10 years of silence broke as his body answered his will. He was standing, shaky but unbroken. The guards froze, their weapons lowering in disbelief. They had come to take a crippled man, but now they faced a soldier reborn. Kaylin's eyes widened, her lips trembling as she whispered, "You did it." Elias stood tall, every muscle burning. Sweat poured down his face, his hands still gripping hers for strength. He felt weak and powerful all at once. But above all, he felt free. The official's face twisted in fury. "Stop him," he shouted. The guards raised their weapons, beams charging. But Elias did not flinch. He took a step forward, slow but certain, the floor trembling under the weight of his defiance. Kaylin moved to his side, her voice sharp. "Do not fire. He is not your enemy. He is hope." But the soldiers hesitated only for a moment. Blinding light filled the room as their weapons discharged. Elias raised his arms instinctively, and to his shock, the surge within him pulsed outward. The beams struck an invisible barrier, energy scattering like sparks in the air. The guards stumbled back, confusion spreading across their faces. Kaylin gasped. "You are not just healing," she whispered. "You are changing." Elias's voice was low but filled with unshakable strength. "I told you, I will not be their prisoner." The room shook as alarms blared, smoke curling from broken machines. The soldiers regrouped, fear warring with duty. But in their eyes, one truth was clear. The crippled man they came to capture was no longer crippled. He was something more, something their orders had not prepared them for. Elias took another step, his legs trembling but holding. 10 years of pain turned into fire in his veins. The final push was not just about walking, it was about standing against those who would break him again. And he would not fall, not tonight, not ever. The miracle witnessed. Smoke filled the room. Alarms howled through the colony towers. The soldiers who came to capture Elias now stood frozen, their weapons trembling in their hands. For before them was not a crippled man, not a broken veteran, but a soldier who had risen from the dead weight of 10 years in chains. Elias stood tall, his legs shaking but holding firm. Every muscle burned like fire. Every step was agony, yet every breath carried power. Kaylin remained by his side, her eyes wide, her heart racing with disbelief and awe. She had come for data, for truth, but what she saw now was something far greater. It was not science, not logic, not theory, it was miracle. Outside, the commotion drew a crowd. Humans and aliens gathered in the streets, their eyes drawn to the glowing windows of Elias's home. They whispered of strange lights, of voices raised, of soldiers defeated. And then the doors burst open. Elias stepped out into the night. The crowd gasped as they saw him. The man who for 10 years had been bound to a chair, now standing, walking, living. Some fell to their knees, others cried out in disbelief. Aliens stared with wide, fearful eyes, while humans shouted in joy. Kaylin's voice shook as she whispered to the stunned officials. You wanted to cage him, but now the galaxy has seen, you cannot silence what they have witnessed. Elias lifted his head, his voice carrying over the crowd. For 10 years I was broken. For 10 years I was told I would never rise again. But tonight I stand, and I will never bow to chains again. The soldiers lowered their weapons, uncertain. The officials' orders died on his lips. For no command could erase what thousands of eyes now saw with their own truth. Children pressed forward, reaching for Elias's hand. When he touched them, a spark passed between them, gentle but real. The whispers turned to shouts, the shouts into a roar. Miracle, they cried. Human miracle. Kaylin looked at Elias, her throat tight with emotion. You are more than science, she whispered. More than soldier. You are proof that humans carry something the galaxy has never understood. Elias's gaze swept across the faces before him, some filled with fear, some with hope, but all watching. He realized then that his fight was no longer only his own. He carried something greater, something that belonged to every human who had ever been called weak, and to every alien who had ever doubted. The night sky seemed brighter, the stars above shimmering like witnesses to his rebirth. For a decade, he had been silent, forgotten, broken. But now, his very existence spoke louder than any weapon, louder than any army. A living miracle, born not from machines or science, but from the unyielding strength of the human spirit. Kaylin stepped closer, her voice soft yet firm. They will come again, stronger, but remember this moment, Elias, for tonight the galaxy saw you rise, and nothing will ever erase that. Elias nodded, his legs still trembling, his body near collapse. But he stood, and that was enough. He raised his hand high, the crowd erupting into thunderous cries that echoed through the colony streets. The miracle had been witnessed, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.